Good morning. Bom dia, bonjour. I was asked to be a teacher for the beginning of this panel and ask everyone to come to the front of the auditorium to give us the impression that there are more people than there are actually here. We know that the last session is always a little bit empty, but Celso has told me there is a two-way ticket to Geneva in one of the chairs of the front rows. So only those who are close by will be able to get the tickets. Thank you very much. Appreciate. So I'd like to welcome you all to the closing panel of the FAUBAI conference. My name is Virgílio Almeida, and I am the Secretary for International Affairs at the University of Brasília. So right up in front, I'd like to say that I expect you to see you all in Brasília next year for our FAUBAI conference. I was honored to be invited to mediate this closing panel. I really don't know what made the organizers think I'm up to the task, but I hope to be able to let the experts do most of the talking and do not interrupt them at any time. It's been great having all of you in this conference because you are responsible for making this event a hit, especially considering it's been one of the biggest turnouts since the pandemic. It's been an exciting invitation to a new journey in which the many speakers of all the sessions explored all sorts of cool stuff in the world of higher education. As I heard of a moderator in one of the sessions, it was the first time in a FAUBAI conference where mathematicians and engineers were presenting best practices for internationalization. So this is a clear indicator of how wide FAUBAI conference is reaching, and it makes us very happy. So before we wrap things up, I want to introduce you to our great panel of speakers. I'd like to invite to sit up here Hilligje van Land, who is the Secretary General of the International Association of Universities. You're welcome. Hilligje is going to bring us loads of wisdom from her global education adventures. I'd also like to invite Cristina Sarmento, the General Secretary of the Association of University of Portuguese Languages. So he's going to share her expertise in fostering collaboration with the Lusophone community. We are also lucky to have Samia Chasi. Samia Chasi. All the way from South Africa, where she's doing an amazing work as the Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Partnership Development and Research at the International Education Association. And last, but definitely not least, my dear friend Waldenor Moraes, the Vice President of FAUBAI, who's been a real champ in shaping the future of internationalization in higher education here in Brazil. I believe you certainly have heard these people before in the past 4 days, and I'm sure we all agree that they could have shared much more with us. So that's why it's great to give them the floor again. So as we wrap things up, we're here not just looking for the institutional perspectives. We want to hear from our panelists about their personal takes on the challenges ahead in international higher education. Let's maybe dive into the human side of things, understanding not just the big picture strategies, but also the personal journeys and dreams that drive us forward in the quest for better education for all. I believe I have spoken more than expected from those who dared invite me, so let's move on so that they don't regret too soon. So I would like to open hearing your thoughts about the following. As I said in this edition of the conference, much has been discussed about a post-global world on a necessary adjustment of the internationalization process. So for you, and I'd like to hear the four of you for this, which new drivers would you identify as key players to internationalize higher education from now on? I believe there's a microphone next to each of you. So Hilligje, can you start, please?
Thank you very much, Virgílio, for this very interesting question. And I would like to start by thanking FAUBAI for an excellent conference. I think we can agree to that and applaud to it as well. I think you're indeed coming from many different walks of life. And I've met many people here already. Without FAUBAI, we would probably not have met. And it's also a unique opportunity to meet again. Drivers for internationalization, what new elements are on the agenda? I strongly believe that actually the geopolitical challenges that we face around the world, wars, inequalities, the climate, the environment, degradation, but even at large, the grand themes that are synthesized in the UN Agenda 2030 should be a wake-up call for all the universities around the world to change the course of teaching, learning, and how we do research. And in particular also how we then deal with internationalization. Universities collectively have the opportunity to educate millions of people into the values that we need for the world to thrive and to change. You talked about the many disciplines that came to FAUBAI. I think that's a very good sign to see that interdisciplinarity will be part of internationalization as well. We will bring people from many walks of life together, and together we can build the grounds for better democracy, for justice, for promoting human rights and equality, and for fostering critical thinking. Universities really need intentional action, also including when it comes to internationalization, to foster multi-perspectivity. And how best to do that other than by using the opportunities to bring people together. So universities should move away from competition and really maximize on their collective intelligence to support democracy, building and promoting the human rights basis that we need moving us into the future. And you've proved it here. I think many people have come together to address these issues, and I think that that's one of the major drivers for moving internationalization into the future.
Thank you very much. FAUBAI, thank you for all these nice conversation, nice opportunities, very nice panel, and the best commandment of the panel. Thank you. I will pass to Portuguese because I'm representing the Association of Portuguese-Speaking Universities. So, bom dia a todos. Naturalmente, quando nós colocamos a questão dos principais desafios que nós podemos ter no futuro, eu creio que o centro real está nos valores académicos das universidades e do ensino superior. Ou seja, o ensino superior tem um conjunto de valores, tem um core de valores que, se conseguirem ser o centro, o objetivo, a referência de todos nós, nos permitem estar um pouco além da instabilidade que sentimos. Eu não sei se o mundo vai ser pós-global, a história não se repete, o mundo foi nacional, global, as universidades tiveram a missão estrutural da cultura dos países nacionais. Encontrar um coro de valores internacional, para mim, será o principal objetivo que deve guiar a internacionalização e que tendencialmente a vai facilitar. And I can assure you, I will translate to Hilligje, Samia, what I've said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to join my fellow panelists in thanking FAUBAI for the invitation to be here with you. I've had the most amazing conference experience, and particularly all the engagements and the conversations that I've had with colleagues have been very inspiring and moving, and I hope that that kind of level of energy, if we can take that back to where we come from and to where we work, we can do a lot together. And I think that's actually where I'd like to focus my response to your question. For me, the new and most important driver of internationalization of higher education is the Global South. And that really, I think, resonates and comes from the conversations that I've had with so many of you over the past few days. And I'm very encouraged, actually, by all the work that is happening and all the willingness and commitment to actually work more closely and strongly together with other institutions in the Global South. And hopefully then, Hilligje, when is the next, the 7th global survey? In about 6 or 7 years? I think what I would like to see is a change to the finding that you presented yesterday in the session on South-South-North collaboration, where you said the Global South is not a priority for itself and not for other regions in the world, and we need to change that. So I want to invite everybody and encourage everybody here, let's work on this. Let's see a different result in the next global survey when it comes to the importance and the contribution of the Global South to the global conversation, the global engagement on higher education internationalization. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank everybody for having come and for having stayed to the end on behalf of FAUBAI. I think we have many challenges, and I think many of the challenges are recovering things that we have designed in the last decades and we haven't been able to reach. You know, like working partnerships on transformative perspective. Like we have partnerships all over the world, and they usually tend to be very unbalanced. And I think this is something we should aim at. And if we really want to work collaborative, as Hilligje said, we need to be at the same table and to be able to listen to our friends all over the world as partners and having something to contribute. We tend to say that we are looking for South perspectives, but I'm afraid Brazil is still copying a little bit of the model that we have been submitted to. So are we really working with our partners South-South as we expect to work with our partners in the North? I don't think so. So I think this is something it's a real challenge. And also something that I would like to bring to this is this perspective of journey, inviting for a new journey. What does that mean? I was thinking about it all the time, like looking at my perspectives and different perspectives. So I think we have to look at the internal journeys, like what do I have to do to make a difference? And then I have to look at the local the challenges. When I mean local, I don't mean local Latin America. I mean, local, my university. I mean, my department, you know, and then I mean local Brazil, and then we need all these different things, like we need budget, we need support, right? So I think we have to consider new journeys and new paths at all different levels, and of course, regional level, right? And global level. But before we reach this very strong perspective that we all wish to reach in terms of global connections, we have to be strong locally too. I mean, how can we connect to our partners? How are we associated with Winnipeg? We are greatly associated with Winnipeg. You know, how close are we to UNESCO, you know, in terms of our international perspectives? We have all local differences, but we have many other things in common, right? So I think that's for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting insights from this first comments. The idea of making us really take on this South-South relationship to the next level, taking away from the aims and objectives and actually making it a priority and working with it, with the traditional, as Waldenor mentioned, the traditional way that we approach the South-North cooperation. I would like to ask you about the role of, exactly because of that, the role of multilingualism in this area. It's interesting that Cristina chose to speak in Portuguese, and it makes all sense. We are in Brazil, and we have had the discomfort of some speakers poking at us, right? We are in Brazil. I am Portuguese, and does it really make sense for me to come to Brazil and speak in English? So I'd like maybe to hear first from Cristina. How do you see the possibility of other languages being more and more used in the internationalization process? Not only Portuguese, but mainly Portuguese.
Thank you very much. So I will say just to Samia and Hilligje, that's language, it's a cultural code, that's a codification. So I pass to explain it in Portuguese just to try to defend my position, okay? Sorry. I know. O que eu gostava de explicar no que diz respeito à língua portuguesa e a justificação de nós termos um código cultural é que a língua é essencialmente um elemento facilitador na internacionalização. E se nós considerarmos que a internacionalização pode e deve ser feita em vários níveis, do nível local ao regional ao internacional, nós temos que aceitar que ao nível local tenhamos plurilinguismo, porque grande parte dos países de língua portuguesa, o português não é a língua primeira. Temos que aceitar que há um contexto histórico-cultural que nos transforma numa codificação que é facilitadora de um entendimento da cultura e da educação, para depois assumirmos um real valor no contexto internacional. A língua é também uma questão de poder fundamental. Foi o latim, foi o francês, hoje é o inglês. Depois da guerra, é do ponto de vista geopolítico e de política de língua, evidentemente, uma assunção de um poder global. Aceitemos, falemos inglês com certeza. Para a internacionalização ser feita harmoniosamente nos vários níveis, nós temos que passar por uma capacitação nesses mesmos níveis. O que significa que para países fazerem a relação, neste caso Sul-Sul, no caso da África lusófona, o português é a língua franca. Não nos podemos esquecer, porque já é a segunda língua em muitos países que são originariamente línguas regionais. O que significa que nós podemos e devemos aceitar o inglês como língua franca mundial, mas que para chegarmos a uma internacionalização global, Temos que ser capazes de honrar um contexto histórico, político, cultural que transforma a língua num elemento extremamente facilitador. Porque a língua não significa aqui uma utilização única, mas utiliza sim toda a estrutura cultural que lhe está na raiz e que está na produção de conteúdos. E os conteúdos são, ligando isto à minha resposta anterior, são de ordem dos valores, e neste caso dos valores académicos. E num mundo que possa ser mais instável, onde nós tenhamos mais pressão geopolítica, mais pressão política interna dos vários eixos que somos capazes de estar em balanço sucessivo, a manutenção de um eixo estratégico cultural associado à língua e aos valores académicos, penso ser um pilar que nos pode ajudar fortemente na estabilização institucional. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado. Thank you very much. Hilligje?
I think I fully agree with what you just said, and it's really important to see multilingualism as an important key to undertaking this new journey that FAUBAI is inviting us to undertake, and to actually go into new directions, moving us into the future. Learning foreign languages, we know, is not easy. It is really getting also out of our own comfort zones, but it's such a beautiful opening of the mind, an opportunity for better predisposition even to meet the other in his or her own reality. Eugenio Bucci said it in his opening keynote speech. He said that when you use a language that is natural to yourselves, it is much better to express yourself better, actually. And so it allows you to educate yourselves when you move into another language, into the world of somebody else at the same time. So it's this connection that is absolutely important to use. And then when you look at what the learning of a language actually offers to us, it improves our cognitive abilities. It enhances our communication skills. It unlocks creativity even. We have to invent a language that will actually seduce the other into having a conversation with us. It promotes thinking skills. It broadens perspectives onto the world. It reduces even prejudices because the barriers are falling. It broadens the facilities to actually move into cultural, economic, diplomatic exchanges. And it even, and that is a funny side effect, it delays onset of age-related mental decline. So I'd better start learning Portuguese. So it helps improve ourselves. It helps us move into new directions, and it should be valorized to the full. What we see, unfortunately, is that language education, and some people here at the conference also made that case on several occasions, is not deemed as being worth being financed properly. But it should be, because it should be part and parcel of any kind of discipline that you learn in a university. And that will allow you to connect to other knowledge systems, to build new knowledge, to really engage with the world in a different way. And also, going back to my point initially, if we ever want to change this world for the better, we will need to engage in other languages more seriously.
Thank you very much. I know this question was not primarily directed at me, but I would like to offer just two thoughts, actually. First of all, the situation about Cristina deciding to speak Portuguese, and we actually had a conversation before because she told me that's what she's going to do. And I said, I'm absolutely comfortable with that because it's important that we speak the language and that we are allowed to speak the language in which we feel most comfortable expressing ourselves. This is an important consideration also for decolonization work, for inclusion work. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, for example, in the morning sessions around COIL and virtual exchange. How important it is to allow students to communicate in their language. And then we have to find ways of making sure that we are inclusive and we understand each other. So I just wanted to make that point. I think that's very important. Another one, of course, around language in the decolonization context is that we talk about the dominance of English, but also many other colonial languages that are spoken in many parts of the global South, South Africa included. And there, another important element of allowing students, for example, who come to universities in South Africa, who are expected to speak English and learn in English, and where sometimes language proficiency becomes an indicator of intelligence. I don't know if you remember, and that's a challenge. That's a problem that we need to be aware of. So I mentioned in the plenary that in South Africa we have now 12 official languages, including sign language. And some students come into university and will have had some English at school, but it's not their first, second, third, fourth, sometimes even fifth language. But now they are expected to learn in this language, to write their essays in this language. And sometimes the lack of English proficiency is interpreted as lack of intelligence. And that's, I think, a real problem that we need to tackle when we talk about multiculturalism, multilingualism, and what this means in terms of how we teach and how we do research and how we engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia. And the questions might be directed for the start, but I'd like to hear all of your guys' take on everything we discuss. And Waldenor, being a linguist, I think we're very interested in hearing what you have to say.
Add everything that has been said before. I agree with everything that's been said before. AULP, Associação das Universidades de Língua Portuguesa, is a great advance. I mean, we're about over 200 million people are speaking Portuguese in the world. And we have a community that identifies itself in many different countries. And AULP brings journals and stimulates events. So I think this is perfect. In a global world in which we have Mandarin, Cantonese, and then you have so many other languages, we do need a medium, a connecting medium, and English is the connecting medium. So, but we have to consider that we should not be limited by or pressed by that fact. We should consider that English is one of the many languages that we should learn. And I love the way you presented it, Hilligje, especially the intelligence part, not the intelligence part, the part that develops your brain when you're getting old. So I would like to learn more languages soon. I think we should make institutional efforts to not only to concentrate on one language, but to develop multilingual skills. And this is definitely hard, and I think we're going to be stimulated and helped by artificial intelligence pretty soon. We've already been exposed to all kinds of different systems that can do automatic translations, and they're getting better and better every day. I have to be careful with my words, but I'm pro-multilingualism, definitely. And I think it opens your mind, and internationalization cannot be focused or done through just one medium. But we cannot at the same time consider the relevance of English, and we have to make policies around it. Like our universities have been working on language policies only very recently through science, language without borders that stimulated the universities to consider that. Brazil signed an agreement with UNESCO in 2014, agreeing that it would make its population bilingual, because based on the principle of global exchanges and professional flexibility and professional mobility. Nothing has been done. I mean, we just signed an agreement, So we have issues with teaching languages in our basic education, and we have issues with teaching languages at the university level. So we aim at having multilingual society because we think multilingualism will open minds and open connections. But at the same time, it's very hard for us to make that a reality. So we end up having a great dependence on just English, right? I don't know if I contributed, Virgílio.
You did, certainly. Thank you very much. Please.
Eu gostava de contribuir só um bocadinho mais para este debate, porque a forma como eu a vejo, e é uma opinião pessoal que aqui se pede, é que a internacionalização precisa de todas as línguas. E o português é uma língua tão vasta, abrange tantas pessoas, que quem quiser internacionalizar também precisa do português. Nunca nos podemos esquecer que a língua é um soft power. Ainda que nós estejamos a trabalhar em realpolitik e a geopolítica nos imponha um conjunto de limitações, o soft power que a língua traduz depende também da sua força, do seu tamanho. E eu gostaria de dar aqui o exemplo da IAU. A IAU é uma Associação Mundial de Universidades. É a IAU que me convida para vir à FAUBAI, me desafia para vir à FAUBAI, porque também quer chegar ao maior número de pessoas também em português, não só em inglês. Portanto, nós temos que criar estas múltiplas estruturas de línguas para também, no caso do Brasil e no caso do português, termos um reconhecimento mundial, porque ninguém é internacional sem o Brasil, sem um continente todo que é a América do Sul. Portanto, os grandes países que de facto transformaram o inglês na língua franca da qual precisamos e a qual aceitamos e que temos que ter políticas de línguas e falá-las, precisam do português, precisam de chegar a nós, precisam de chegar a estas comunidades para também serem internacionais. Sem isso não cumprem os seus objetivos. É apenas uma pequena contribuição que eu gostaria de dar e que, por exemplo, aqui se traduz na colaboração entre a IAU, a AULP e a FAUBAI, que é num diálogo global, de facto, e é nesse diálogo que nós estamos empenhados.
Obrigado. Thank you, Cristina. It's definitely something that, in some level, we all know, right? I think it's very relevant what Samia mentioned, that there is this view that if you don't speak English, you're not intelligent enough. And there's also the feeling that if you don't speak good English, you're not intelligent enough. So even those who do speak English have to face this kind of and it makes us think, certainly those who work with language, it makes us think within the country itself, we have this. If you don't speak the Portuguese I speak, you're not intelligent enough, even being a native speaker of Portuguese. So this goes to a wider level when we mentioned foreign languages. And also very interesting, this comment Cristina made, that you can't internationalize and leave Latin American out of the picture and leave African, China and Russia out. So this makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. So I have one question. Let's start with Samia now, okay? So on the one hand, you have an increasing attention given to the global south, frequently defined in opposition to the north of or western countries. And on the other hand, you do have regional differentiations among global south countries, naturally among north countries. So how can one reconcile the different interests to build partnerships based on mutual trust and understanding? What Waldenor said, people sitting on the chair on the same level.
Thank you for that question. I think I'd like to start by complicating it a little bit further. We've spoken a lot about global north and global south, and I think at some point in the conversation we said it's not as straightforward and simple as that. When I speak about global north and global south, I often, of course, do not necessarily refer to geographies and locations on the globe, but to the relational aspect and to the historical connection between countries in the global north and countries in the global south, which is, in the case of South Africa, one that has been dominated by colonial histories with 2 European nations. So there's that relational aspect in what we mean when we say north-south. But then we know that we also start talking about, we have north in the south and we have south in the north. For example, north in the south is a city like Sao Paulo, I think, a city like Johannesburg, you know, where it looks like Europe when you come there in certain parts. Then we also have southern communities in the north, which are often indigenous communities, poor communities, underrepresented communities. So we have to take all of that into consideration as well. But it becomes even more complex because we can be south and north in ourselves. When I did my PhD study, I looked at Wits University in Johannesburg in South Africa and the international partnerships of that university. And it soon became clear to me that Wits is an institution that can wear both hats. So, for example, if Wits goes and establishes a partnership with, let's say, Harvard or Cambridge University, it will be considered the southern partner in that partnership, in that collaboration. But if Wits goes and establishes a partnership with another university in Africa, it will in many cases be considered the northern partner because it's much more resourced, it's much more worldly, it's much more world-class and whatever, you know, the indicators are. So we have to consider that. And it goes even further than that. Even within South Africa, we have such differentiation that some colleagues from Wits University were told from colleagues in another province, they mustn't come there and colonize that province. So the complexities are many. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that in every case, when we establish a partnership, we have to look at who is our partner. Can we spend some time to understand them? Can we spend some time to say, do we have a history? Sometimes there is a history, a national history, an institutional history. And then we have to kind of like really come to this point, to this commitment to say, we are all coming to this as equal partners. And that's very important. We respect our differences. And in fact, we value our differences and start collaborating from there. I think that is very important. And then at some point, it doesn't matter anymore whether you are north and south. You know, in fact, many colleagues have said we need to start moving beyond these terms. We need to find other ways, you know, and it's difficult to find other ways because this is so easy for us. You know, we think I say global south and you will say, yes, I know what you're talking about. But ultimately, to move away from these binaries and from these divisions, we actually need to find new language. We need to find new ways, but perhaps in the time being, we can just agree that we treat everybody with equal respect and we figure out what our relationship is, what is everybody bringing to the table. And I've had so many conversations with you where I think we have an understanding. It's not an eye for an eye. We don't bring the same things. We bring different things based on who we are and where we come from. And if we respect that, and if we start any relationship, any partnership like that, I think we can go a long way working together.
Would anyone like to take from that, Hilligje?
Yeah, I would like to applaud a second time to what you just said, Samia, because it's exactly where we should start the conversations, how to actually change the paradigm, how to change also even the linguistics about how we speak about things. Because what does Global South even mean if you ask people? Is it a geographical demarcation, or is it a geopolitical one, much more geopolitical or political purely than even geographic? Because South is South in many, many different parts of the world, and South versus North is more a demarcation that denotes an opposition between parts of the world rather than an opportunity to engage with each other. The other day in the taxi, I was reminded of the fact that Latin America is a term that was a historical construct by intellectual Americans to actually make a difference between religious parts of the Americas, between the Catholics and the Protestants, between the more Latin people and the Anglo-Saxon ones. And so it was already from the start, by using a terminology, it was not something that was meant to co-construct something, but to already establish an opposition between parts of the world. And that's what's happening with Global North against Global South. When you look at how the bundling of countries under these denominations actually do not make sense geographically. And they also politically make no sense. And that's where we indeed need to move away from those and look at it from a different angle. You know, these maps that are even trying to revisit the way in which we look at the world. So it's, we put them upside down, we diminish specific parts of the world, we put the Americas at the center, we put Africa in the middle, and then we put it upside down again, and we look at the weight of the population, and then you have, again, different ways of looking at things. And why do people do that? Because the way that the map even is designed is a way that hurts people, because it's an opposition system between different parts of the world rather than one that is aiming at really looking at the differences that we should value, work together, see that we come with beautiful things from the many different parts of the world, and co-create, again, something that will make the difference, moving us into the future. It's the same, not only the partnerships, I very much liked your example, it's the same with international students coming to institutions. They're not all treated the same. So we have a lot of work to do in our universities to educate the admin staff. We have to educate the staff even. We have to educate the professors into how they deal with the international students coming to them and see them as real opportunities away from seeing somebody who doesn't really understand the system. They have to be assisted. No, they understand the system, but in a different way. And they come with their own capacities, and that's what's supposed to enrich everything that we do. So that's where I fully agree and will undersign anything that says we have to move away from these oppositions and co-construct and imagine something else. Thank you.
Cristina would like to say something.
Eu também gostava de acrescentar só um apontamento, concordando com a Samia e concordando com a Hilligje. Não nos podemos prender só aos conceitos políticos, porque senão ficamos pantanosamente dentro deles. O Sul Global é um conceito político. Terá imensas utilidades para imensos propósitos. Podemos usá-lo aqui. Mas a internacionalização é, no meu entender, um multilateralismo em networking. A internacionalização não tem eixos, é multilateral. E é multilateral nos vários níveis, local, regional e mundial. Se nós perdermos esse sentido e ficarmos presos em opções de política educativa dirigidas a estes grandes conceitos que podemos usar para outros efeitos, nós perdemos a noção essencial dessa multilateralidade. What we say in English, a multilateral network, e isso é que é a internacionalização. A internacionalização tem este ponto muito específico. Se perdermos este ponto de vista, podemos patinar noutros conceitos que podem ser úteis ou podem ser também uma infelicidade para nós, em alguns casos. Gostava só de acrescentar a questão da América Latina. A ONU só reconhece Norte-Sul. E essa identificação é geográfica, onde tem uma América Central. A questão da América Latina e Caraíbe também tem alguns problemas que eu desafio a comunidade académica do Brasil a explorar no sentido conceptual, para também saber o que lhe possa ser mais útil no futuro. O que eu tenho percebido nas grandes redes mundiais é que isso, de certa forma, tende a apagar um pouco o Brasil sem necessidade. O Brasil é um parceiro mundial que pode trabalhar com os dois conceitos, como si próprio, como a América Latina e como a América do Sul. E é nessa multilateralidade que ele ganha a sua projeção máxima, no meu entender. Muito obrigada.
I want to, while Samia was talking about this, the fact that it's a political issue more than a global issue, the fact that you have the North and the South and the North, it just came to my mind a discussion I had last year with some faculty at the university, where we got a request for a code to tell from a university, let's say from the South, from the global South, and they were asking me, but can we do code to tells with any institution? Don't we need to evaluate the institution in order to accept a student for a code to tell? And then I said, if our student want to do a code to tell with Harvard, would they do the same with us? Is this what you're telling me, that Harvard should evaluate our university, see the rankings that we complain so much about, and based solely on that, allow the code to tell to take place or not? And because there is this, again, this idea in all of us that what really matters is the global North, not the global South. Even though the papers and the objectives and the discourse is one, but when it gets to the practice. So it's very interesting to remind us that we have to be equal on the table, right? And if an institution doesn't even show in the rankings, maybe it's the time for the Brazilian universities to help those institutions exactly receiving more and more collaboration, getting students to do code to tells and exchange with us. Waldenor, okay, I want to bring you into the conversation here and tell me what could be the role of Brazil or maybe Latin America in this current context of globalization and interregional polarization?
I think we can have a very strong role, but we have to change from within. You know, I think this does not happen as a miracle. It's a social construct, a cultural construct. We call ourselves a continent. Brazil is a continent, and we tend to look to the ocean or north, and then we forget that we have so many neighbors around us. Fortunately, FAUBAI has been having great experience in connecting to our partners in Latin America. The pandemic kind of helped us through this, and we developed together with, I never remember all the names of the countries, but with Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Chile, Peru, okay. We connected to those associations from those countries, and we developed an initiative called INILAT, which is an initiative towards internationalization. So we're not talking about networks of associations, we're talking about sharing policies, sharing concepts, and sharing practices. So these associations in INILAT has designed 6 axes of things to develop, and has produced papers, journals, and publications in general. And we keep on working on this concept that we have to integrate ourselves. So I think Brazil should lead. I'm also going to be very careful, and please forgive me if I make a political mistake here. But I think Brazil is huge. I mean, so Brazil could lead, or could not lead in terms of being #1, but lead in terms of saying, hey, can you join us? Let's all do this together, you know? Because usually when you use the word lead, you're always considering that you're #1, and that's not that. But I mean, we have 69 federal universities. We have 2,000 different institutions. We have, you know, around 8 million students in our higher education system. Who compares to that, right? So I believe, yes, Brazil can play a very strong role, but not alone. And Brazil should study its lessons first, you know? Like, how many of us do speak Spanish? We go from Portuguese to English, right? And we invite all our neighboring friends to come to our universities, and we do offer them Portuguese lessons, but we expect them to interact very soon with the language they bring, with Spanish. So we make very, at least I'm talking about my university, we make very few adaptations to consider the language they bring, you know. We expect them to almost miraculously, as we were saying before, within like 2 or 3 months, learn Portuguese and be able to produce science in Portuguese with the Spanish they bring. So I think we're not doing our homework as we should as a country. And I apologize if I'm not politically correct regarding other institutions. And I think Latin America in general is not doing that either towards Brazil. And so I think we should see ourselves more as a powerful machine. We are a powerful machine. We have strong institutions. We have institutions in Ecuador that have been there for like 400 years or 300 years, you know, in other countries. So we should look at ourselves and get stronger. And maybe we can even start changing things in some perspectives. Like, for example, in the ranking systems, we in Latin America have something in common, some things in common, a lot of cultural differences, but also a lot of cultural similarities. We tend to consider education as a human right. Who else does that all over the world? I don't know. But we do. We consider education as a human right. Our universities have a social responsibility, a strong social connection to our communities, and we are very proud of that. And we are part of the development of our communities. Not every university in the world is doing that. So I think we have different perspectives, we have strong institutions, but we need to do more.
Hilligje, please.
We can do this together, and that is also where maybe the example of an IAU is interesting. We've been created in 1950, and the aim of the IAU was to build bridges across divides. It's interesting to see today that even though we have this grand vision and the mission that's been given to the International Association of Universities, at times people say, but why do you have these small institutions as member of the IAU? What is this diversity? Why are all these institutions coming from so many different perspectives? Well, that's because of all of this. It's been actually the mandate, the mission of the association to bring the different voices together and co-create something different together. And it's not because you are a big university in a big city, in a big country, and all that comes with big, that you will make the difference locally, and that you will be able to engage with the global challenges that we face or the local challenges that we face. They're totally interconnected. And so we're very proud every time we have an event, a conference, a workshop, a webinar, that we bring in voices that are radically different and all are pieces of the broader puzzle that we have to actually really revisit. This puzzle doesn't come together. On the seats, I left some issues of our magazine IAU Horizons, and for those who just flip through the magazine and don't look at even the time we put into finding the right visual on front of the magazine, and so you'll find it on our website, and you're far too far away to see it. But here you have this round, which is representing the world, but it's a world that is cracking. It's not one that is easily coming together. It is one that actually requests for what you're asking, Waldenor. It's this intentional process at looking how we connect and whom we connect with. It is not along divides. It's not along classifications. We will only work with those. We will only work with those. We will only work with these kinds of institutions. Together, we will make the difference. What's also another beautiful example that you gave, who do you engage with, what is co-tutel all about? It's about the capacity of the individual to engage with its own capacities. And so if a person wishes to have this co-tutel with whichever institution around the world, it's of value, because the individual will unfold into somebody that we don't know today that person will be. So it's that opportunity that we have.
Thank you, Hilligje. Okay, let's move on and bring something else for this debate. Maybe we could start with Cristina now. What do you see as a future for virtual teaching and virtual learning, especially in this context of territorial conflicts, limited physical mobility? What is the interest of virtual learning?
Não creio que seja uma questão fácil. E também não creio que tenhamos absorvido completamente as lições da Covid-19. Ou seja, muitas instituições, norte, sul, leste e oeste, várias classificações de vários tipos, fizeram um grande esforço de rapidamente ter educação virtual, ensino virtual, por emergência. E essa emergência levou-nos e simultaneamente o desenvolvimento tecnológico, a assumir que podemos ensinar virtualmente. Há algum receio de uma competitividade mundial nesse ensino. Se algumas universidades, neste sentido do Norte, se tiverem uma oferta virtual muito competitiva, vai ser complicada para um equilíbrio de poderes universitários. Mas, simultaneamente, e por exemplo, pela experiência da IAU, nós podemos ter momentos de interação, nomeadamente de formação de lideranças, de formação de cursos, aonde podemos perder alguma capacitação pedagógica de interação com as novas gerações. Creio que não estamos ainda capazes de perder essa interação pedagógica com as gerações vindouras, mas no domínio daquilo que é a capacidade de interação dos líderes, a possibilidade de trabalharmos virtualmente é extraordinária e penso que deve ser aproveitada. E para já, ainda numa fase de não ter ideias ainda muito consolidadas sobre a matéria, é o que entendo neste momento. Muito obrigada.
Samia, please.
Thank you. Well, I think we've spoken about COIL and virtual exchange in many places already during the conference, so perhaps my response is now not offering too many new things, but because we also were not necessarily always in the same room at the same time, perhaps it is useful to try and reflect a little bit on bringing some of those things together. So first and foremost, I think virtual exchange, of which COIL is one methodology, is going to be increasingly more important, I think. An organization such as IEASA has identified COIL as a best practice for internationalization in contexts such as ours, a South African context where we sit with higher education that is under-resourced and underfunded generally, and then, of course, also in internationalization, where particularly around the ability to move students physically to other parts of the world, the majority of our students do not get these opportunities, or they can't take them up. So virtual exchanges, virtual mobility have become increasingly more important, and starting long before COVID. This was not a COVID thing to say now we need to move to online teaching and learning, but using technology had been identified as something that we need to do because of the socio-economic realities of our students and our institutions. And So it is something that we see in the context of strengthening inclusion and inclusive practices to increase access and participation in international opportunities and exchange. But of course, we did mention in the sessions that there are some caveats and some challenges here. The digital divide is something that we mentioned. But of course also that when we engage virtually, it doesn't mean that we don't have to address the power dynamics and, you know, epistemic inequalities, for example, of what we would also have to do if we are in a physical classroom. I learned about BRAVE, and I want to congratulate FAUBAI because I think this is something that you set up already as far back as 2017. So I've had some first conversations about it yesterday, and I'm keen to really learn more. And I think this is something where, you know, we could have a collaboration between Brazil and South Africa, and we can learn something from you. We have a few institutions who have, you know, taken on COIL and are driving COIL and COIL projects and engagements. But we also said yesterday in a session, this is actually an area where we as representatives of the Global South can become leaders in championing COIL initiatives in our engagements. And one of the responsibilities that we discussed very briefly, and perhaps this goes mostly to the attention of associations like our own, that we need to start talking to important stakeholders in international education, particularly funding organizations. There are a number of organizations, particularly in the global north, that continue to offer funding for physical mobility. And I think we need to start talking to them to say, actually, this is something that we should start changing. If you can develop an instrument, a funding instrument, that allows and encourages institutions to collaborate using COIL, for example, I think we can make a big change. So this is something that I would like to take on as a responsibility to say, you know, in my engagements with funding organizations, these are the kind of conversations that we need to have to push for change. So I think, in short, absolutely very, very important role of virtual exchange going forward. And I think increasingly also not only for institutions in the South, but our colleagues in the North, you know, also are increasingly more interested because we talked about this. Even in Europe, even after Bologna, even after Erasmus, not more than 5% of their students are mobile either. So in order to have an international classroom, you know, somewhere in the Netherlands or in Germany, our colleagues will also look for other avenues of doing that. And we can take them along on that journey.
I think there's certain things that apparently the English would say that you cannot avoid death nor taxes. I think you cannot avoid technology, you cannot avoid virtual learning, and we're so glad they're here, right? So, but it's still a process, and some of our partners, they consider online learning as something which is ready and packaged and delivered. So some would say online delivery. We have online delivery. That doesn't fit our concepts, right? We're not talking about delivery, we're talking about sharing, producing knowledge. We're talking about teaching and learning online. And that takes education. I mean, Cristina mentioned that. You have, it's not just simply putting everything you have online. And you have to interact students, attract students. And statistics show that there's a very high percentage of people, dropouts, right? Because sometimes they just need more connection, human connection, interaction. I think this is a great possibility, a great opportunity for global collaboration. I think we could have more of that with Portugal, with our Portuguese-speaking partners. I think AULP could play a role in making this happen. And also, I think we have an example. I don't know, Virgílio, if you remember, when we were together at Segrifis, at Andifis, we developed a program called Destino Brasil during the pandemic, and we offered 104 courses to the world for free. And those courses were taught in English, Spanish, or German, and French, right? And we selected courses that aimed at showing what Brazil could offer in terms of science and culture and history. And it was a great success, but we found it very hard to manage that, in terms of systems and platforms and connecting people and registering people and accrediting, because some people wanted to take those courses but wanted to have the courses accredited. So I think BRAVE is a great example. FAUBAI has been stimulating this, and I think we can grow and should grow on it. But other institutions need to, again, do their homework, And I say this, and I always look at home, so I feel very comfortable when I say this because I'm talking to myself. We need more investment and more qualification on our staff, for our staff, so that we can produce better material, so that people don't compare virtual mobility or virtual classes as something second class. We know it's not. We don't want that, right? We want virtual mobility to be added or to be a part of our regular curriculum. It's something regular, not something extra. Like we have a legislation for federal universities, you cannot offer online classes to our students, and there's a certain limit, and if you want to offer, you have to follow certain regulation. Contrary to what happened during the pandemic, like people are stimulated to offer anything online. Now people are not as stimulated, and so I think we have all these issues, but it brings, I guess, resource efficiency if we're talking about good quality and good quality being shared. And in terms of a world which is being affected by all these tensions, it also helps to the to peaceful interactions. Like we can interact with some of our partners who are under war, like without having to go to those places. And I think we should do that, not to isolate them and not to isolate ourselves from them too. So I think it can also be a tool for integration in political terms, I mean. I think that's it.
Thank you, Waldenor. Hilligje, we want to hear you.
I'm not a specialist in this field, but what we've done in particular when COVID hit, and you're right, Samia, this is not a COVID-led development because it happened in South Africa way before actually even COVID hit. And DUT, for instance, is a COIL expert, and we work with you a lot on these topics, and we also work with all the open universities around the world to actually develop the kind of capacity that you were talking about, because moving online requires really specific skills, not only on the side of the professors, but also on the side of the students, because you need to interact differently. You engage with knowledge in a different way. And so we too easily have taken for granted that it's an easy thing to do. We work a lot with WOC, the Open University Catalunya, for instance, an organization or an institution that has developed real capacity building opportunities for staff and students and how to engage. That's another partner where we could look at, and South Africa could take the lead and then engage others and define other opportunities for working together. In the virtual space, what we see also in the various webinars that we've devoted to discussing this space developing, we still see some of what you called caveats. One of the big ones is that there is also this knowledge bundle that is available from more one part of the world than from the rest, and to really ensure that there is a balanced opportunity for knowledge systems to be shared properly, and that you don't too easily slide into grasping the opportunities that are available out there, but they are belonging to companies, people who make money on the back of of people using them, and also the kind of discourse that is circulating more easily thanks to those who have more money, simply because it is a costly endeavor, and it requires, there again, a real intentional process to develop many more courses in the many more languages. So you already identified 5 or 6, and many others are working on that as well. But it's a matter of really trying to find ways to help that part of our education system develop at a fast speed, to also compensate for the only 5% of mobile people in the future and offer these other opportunities for really engaging. So we're at the beginning of it, I think. It's something that will develop into the future for sure, because there is a real demand for it. But we have to really make sure that we seriously scrutinize the kind of quality that is offered as well. And that will be a challenge in the future.
Thank you very much. I think we've reached our deadline. I would like to open the floor if you want to give a last comment to the audience, a goodbye. But before you do that, I would like to thank you dearly for the insights, for this friendly, informal conversation. You made my job very easy. That's why it's nice to have competent people giving us information so that we can interact with you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. I thank you all for staying with us until the end. And if you'd like to say something to close your remarks, starting with Waldenor now. Waldenor has not started any interaction so far.
Yeah, I learn with others, you know, so I would like to thank everybody for being with FAUBAI, and each one of us contribute to the level of development that we have reached. So FAUBAI is not FAUBAI by itself. FAUBAI is a result of everybody that came before, that is now contributing to all these discussions and to all these connections. So sometimes you're there, you contributed in your conferences, you didn't have the chance to share your views here, but your views are as great or greater than the views that have been shared. So I stimulate everybody to contribute through our channels, through our post-FAUBAI events. And I would like to thank my friends at the panel for the opportunity. I hadn't met Samia before. It was my first time. It was great meeting you, you know. Cristina and Hilligje, we've been together before in different events, so it's a great opportunity to hear from you, and it's always a pleasure to connect and to hear from your voices, from your experiences. So I go back to this idea of journey. I think it's a long journey, and every year we're looking for a different theme, but this theme, it remains back in your mind. We have to keep on moving to these, new journeys all the time. Universities are supposed to be places of intellect and places of creativity, but usually universities are so heavy in terms of business and administration that all these great ideas that bubble sometimes are not fostered because of all the different barriers that we carry with us. So I think we should make this movement forward, make our associations more aggressive, more active, more stimulating, in these perspectives. It may be bringing the universities together. And our universities, I think, should be more innovative, more active, and free themselves from the shackles of those curricula. We can't change the curricula. We have all kinds of limitations, So we want to go international, we want to go global. We have to consider sustainability issues, and we're still imprisoned by all those limitations that we have. So I think our institutions, our associations could help, our universities develop their innovation strategies or towards internationalization, I mean. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. For me, also a big thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Really to everyone, especially also to you for moderating this wonderful discussion. To all my colleagues here, when we came into it, we kind of like thought, you know, we didn't really know what exactly to expect. But magic happened, as it often does in these places, and it's been so wonderfully engaging and stimulating, and our perspectives, I think, were so, you know, wonderfully complementary and contributing to very rich discussions, which is something that I've seen for the duration of this conference. And so I would really like to thank FAUBAI again for bringing us all together in this way and for providing us with these wonderful engagements. We do know that we are privileged to be in the room where we have these very human connections. Yesterday, I gave a lot of hugs to people who I had met only online, and to say it's really wonderful to finally, you know, sit with you, have breakfast with you, you know, go and see and explore the city with you. Of course, we realize that this is very valuable, but that doesn't take away, I like what you said about virtual engagements, not to say as a replacement, but as something that has value in itself. So I think, you know, not an add-on, you said, but an integral part. I like that very much. So I hope, like I said, that, you know, we will continue with our engagements. I have a long list of things that I would like to do and take away, and connections that I have made. So thank you so much. And perhaps just coming back to the metaphor of the journey, if I can offer another piece of African wisdom on that, and you might know this, but I think it's a wonderful saying that you know, encapsulates everything that I would like to leave with you as a kind of like parting message. And this is what we say: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
After that, what can I say? Nothing, of course. That's impossible to say better. So, very big thank you, special to Hilligje and to Samia. That respects my need to be consistent and to speak in Portuguese. Os meus agradecimentos. É preciso alguma resistência para manter esta posição de que a língua tem um peso, um critério, uma cultura, uma estrutura, que é um prazer participar nela. E, naturalmente, eu creio que está bem exposto nestas apresentações e na forma como cada um de nós reagiu. O que é que este diálogo envolve? Este diálogo envolve uma certa humanidade, naturalmente, uma certa consciência de nós, e também, vou voltar à minha primeira apresentação, uma certa consciência do que são os valores académicos, dos quais estamos muito necessitados. Eu gostaria aqui de expor um conjunto de... I will talk about some problems where the institution manifests to IAU about democratic values in CERN. Portanto, eu gostava também de transmitir que a IAU também recebe muitas queixas de universidades pelo mundo inteiro, que registram algumas dificuldades internas de democratização, de posicionamento perante os governos, etc. E, portanto, estes diálogos devem, a meu ver, continuar a acreditar que é em torno de um conjunto de valores que a ideia da universidade nos dá, que permite o diálogo e não outro. Nesse sentido, estou com o Waldenor e com a Chasi, que os valores da universidade são os valores da dignidade humana e são dos direitos humanos, que é o da educação. Muito obrigada.
I can say nothing after all this, but thank you as well. And what is interesting is that after these events, I always come away very humbled by everything that is actually in the room that I learned from. And I have a long list as well. Samia, we can compare if they are the same, but of to-dos, follow-up. Really, I've learned a lot. There are things that we that we need to change also in the way in which we work with everyone. It's beautiful to hear what we can do, how we can do it, how we can always think about how doing things better together. So the conversations we've had over breakfast, over lunch, over dinner, over cachaça, in the room yesterday with all the beautiful dynamics that was there, I think that's what a conference also does. Virtual events or face-to-face. And yes, you're absolutely correct. We're absolutely privileged to have had the opportunity to meet with many of you, work with you, and move our own frameworks out of their frameworks to rethink the way in which we do things. So I would like to thank the audience for the opportunity to actually push us always to help us think about what we do and how we do it and how we can improve it. And the panelists, you gave me a lot of food of thoughts. I've written down many different things. Very nicely complimentary. Thank you for the great moderation, Virgílio. We indeed didn't know, as you said yesterday evening, where this conversation would go, but we hope that we've lived up to the expectation of the audience. Not many people left, so that's okay. Thank you very much, and see you on the journey from here to Brasília next year.
Thank you all. I think our president has a closing message to all of us. We'll go down so that you have the whole, okay.
So, boa tarde, bonjour, buenas tardes, guten tag, riva, taipava, uhan, good afternoon. Dear participants, at the opening of the FAUBAI 2024 conference, I said that this year's theme, Inviting for a New Journey, was meant to be provocative. It was an invitation to take a fresh look at the issues we work with regularly, so that we have inclusive, equitable, and sustainable policies for the internationalization of higher education, translated into concrete actions. From what I have seen, we have at least made a start towards that goal. Over the 5 days of the conference, we had the opportunities to share many moments and take part in inspiring talks through provoking debates, good practices, rich moments of interaction, and possibilities for developing new cooperations. In his inspiring opening speech, Eugênio Butch reminded us of Sophocles' Antigone. Only one king rules over me, the one who builds bridges and destroys walls. We said that this should be the role of universities and their international. He said that this should be the role of universities and their internationalization, especially at this time, and you mentioned this here, when bridges are being torn down and walls built. We reinforce our role and that of FAUBAI in building bridges and deepening collaboration. Samia emphasized another important issue by pointing out different issues, but I mentioned one, by pointing out that we can and must be more critical, that the internationalization of higher education is an invitation to imagine a world refreshed from the global south, rethinking and reimagining concepts and practices and thinking on and doing differently. In yesterday's plenary, Nicolas Patrici reminded us that we must also consider the significant challenges we face to move forward with our partnerships. And in this context, Samia's line, to move mountains tomorrow, we need to start lifting stones today, shows all its powers. May we start moving stones today. But in order for the stones to move, we need to remember and thank everyone who helped us in various ways to make this event possible. Firstly, a very special thank to our sponsors, Campus France and French Embassy, Australian Embassy and Study Melbourne, Embassy of the United States, Office of the Government of Quebec in São Paulo, Inter-American Organization for Higher Education, Universities New Zealand, Erasmus Plus Portugal, which is now a FAUBAI associate, thanks. On behalf of the FAUBAI Board of Directors, I would like to extend a very special thank to our very professional and heroic little FAUBAI team. Nicolas Maillard, thank you for organizing the program, for your dedication, commitment, and everything else. Vanessa Panico, thank you for the financial management of the event and the association for heading up with the whole back office of suppliers, registrations, but above all, for doing that always smiling. And of course, Rita Lobac and Waldenor Barros Moraes Filho for your partnership, support, and dedication to the success of this conference and the association. To our tireless team of assistants, Carolina Martoni, Luca Ferrari, Marcelo Evangelista, and Marcélia Pereira, FAUBAI and everyone interacting with our association is very lucky to have this team. And this team, I also would like to say a special thank to the monitors who guided and directed us through the corridors of this event center. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. A big thank to our Executive Director, Renée Zickman, for her tireless dedication to the most minor organizational details, ensuring that everything went according to plan. Thanks also for her relationship with sponsors, supporters, exhibitors, and for her leadership of the entire FAUBAI team. To the Brazilian Ministry of Education, to the Secretary of Higher Education and the Coordination for the Improvement of Higher Education Personnel CAPES, and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the Guimarães Rosa Institute, thank you very much for your essential support and partnership. Last but not least, a very special thank you to the more than 700 participants from 25 countries who accepted our invitation for a new journey. Thank you very much. Going to the end, I want to highlight that much has been said about South-South cooperation. And I would like to make it very clear that we are not closing doors to the North, but making a big invitation for our voices to be heard and for us to be able to work together more and more with a new epistemology. Please come with us in this new journey. So we look forward to seeing you all in Brasília from 26 to 30 April 2025 for the FAUBAI 2025 conference. May the journey we started at this conference be realized towards equitable and sustainable partnerships. Please save the date. Moreover, Before I say goodbye, I have a message to our Argentinian friends. Who are currently going through what we Brazilians went through in the recent past, and which we have hope has effectively become a thing of the past. Count on us. We look forward to seeing you again soon at our conference and being with you at Fiesta. Abraço a todos. Thanks. Last words, the dinner will be served in the sponsors' lunch, sorry. The lunch will be served in the sponsors area just behind us. Thanks, really.